Eagles. Eagles.
And welcome in, everybody, to a Wednesday morning edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, John McMullen. Just 2 weeks away, everybody, from the Eagles' first practice, and less than 2 weeks now until the Birds report for training camp as we roll here through the offseason. The 2026 football season will be here before you know it. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Wednesday morning, my friend?
Doing well. Yeah, we're 2 weeks away from being on the practice field officially. So, yeah, things are creeping up on us. Post All-Star break. Congratulations, for an awful game, by the way. Ruined everything, by the way. I joke because, you know, it was Mike Gill, so we'll talk a little bit with him. He'll be on this morning, but you know, I'm like, it was a perfect celebration of modern baseball. 100 pitchers and no hitting whatsoever. That's baseball. Baseball. 97 pitchers a game, and everybody hits 220, and you're an all-star if you hit 260. That's baseball.
Oof, brutal. But, yeah, that concluded last night. So maybe we'll get Jeff Kerr on at some point here in the week after his little all-star vacation has come to an end. Looking forward to hearing from him at some point. John, a good show today. We've been following along, and I think some people are probably sick of the list, and I get it, but it is
the list.
I do like these ones, though, because obviously for the reasons that you've pointed out, they do ask people that are in the league. It's not just some, you know, Joe Schmo out there, which is a good thing. But they did the wide receiver list today. Our old buddy A.J. Brown did crack the top 10. He was, I believe, ninth overall on the list. Devontae Smith was in the not in the honorable mentions, in the other names with the vote list. Looked like he was the 22nd receiver listed, John, on throughout the entire thing. I don't know if that's in perfect order after you get out of the top 10, but pretty deep down the list there for Devontae Smith. What'd you make of the receiver list that came out today?
Yeah, I don't know about the also receiving votes category. I did ask them, and they did answer. The honorable mention guys are in order, so that's why everybody went with Jalen Hurts at 17. He was the last one mentioned with the quarterbacks. I'm not quite sure about the also receiving votes. I don't think they're in order, but not 100%. Not that it matters. I mean, that's where Devontae's already been. I would say, you know, late teens is where he's been, and hopefully getting the added traffic, the more opportunities will allow him to go higher on the list. But I thought the list was pretty solid. I think Nico Collins continues to be a little bit underrated in Houston. I think Devontae Adams probably a little bit high at this stage of his career. But some of the honorable mention guys, he had some reputation guys with Tyreek Hill, who's, you know, not even signed and coming off a horrible injury. So, I mean, you're going against the definition of the list by picking somebody like Tyreek Hill, even Mike Evans to a certain degree, as a longtime star who's declining. Let's be honest, not what he once was. But that's the nature, man. You can define it, because I defined my list for Eagles on SI. It's not my list, but I was the one who defined it. People do what they want. They do what they want. So entering 2026, which is what it's supposed to be, you know, predictable. Jamar Chase 1, Justin Jefferson 2, Jackson Smith and Jigba 3 coming off last season, Puka 4 coming off great season, Amon-Ra St. Brown at 5, tremendous, CD Lamb, kind of down season, bunch of drops last year. Maybe he's a little bit high. George Pickens was better than CD Lamb last year. But you worry about just his consistency from game to game, but he's really gifted. Sort of like the Jalen Carter of receivers, George Pickens. But he's coming off big.
It's a good comp.
But he's coming off a big time year. Like so he's sort of like Jalen Carter 2024. AJ was 9th. We mentioned Nico Collins 8th, and Devontae Adams was 10. And then the honorable mentions were Malik Neighbors. Really, really gifted young player, but he's got the knee injury, so you got to see how he comes back from it. Mike Evans, who we mentioned, aging now with the 49ers, so should put up numbers in that offense. Zay Flowers, who's, good, not great. Tyreek Hill. Drake London, I think, is underrated. I think people underrate, big receivers in general because they automatically assume they're contested catch guys, which is the case with Drake London, but he's much more than that. And I don't think people see it. And Jameson Williams, who's certainly gifted, but I don't know, there's something missing with him from a consistency standpoint. And then Devontae was in a group with Alec Pierce. Like, he's way better than Alec Pierce. Way better. T. Higgins, very good player. DK Metcalf, still a very good player. Terry McLaurin, I would say, is descending a little bit. Garrett Wilson's a tremendous player. I just think people don't realize it because they're a disaster. The Jets, they don't have anybody to get them the football. If they figure that out, if Geno Smith can stay out of trouble for a week and a half, who knows? Lad McConkey's a good player. Brian Thomas coming off a down year. Jalen Waddle and Chris Olave, who I think is underrated, but pretty good list as it usually is.
I think, is it fair, you think, to assume that the also receiving votes category is in order if every other part of the list is in order? I mean,
yeah, I said, I don't think it is in order.
No.
Yeah, I don't think it is, but
it's definitely not in alphabetical order. It's obviously so.
Well, I give you an example. They left Chris Olave off. Jeremy Fowler tweeted out that was an oversight, and they just put him in the edit, and they just put him last. So that's an indication to me that it's not in order. But I asked about the honorable mentions because I wanted to know where Jalen was, if he was 17th or if that was just, jumbling in guys. And the honorable mention part is in order. So, but I don't think the also receiving votes is. And that could be because, I don't know why, but now that I think about it, and Jeremy put out that correction and said, and they put him last. It's probably an indication, but I don't know that for 100%. I'll tell you what, Devontae Smith should be ahead of freaking Alex Pierce.
I agree. I agree. I think what let me ask you this on another way to look at it. How much have the Eagles hurt Jalen Hurts by trading away AJ Brown? Because look, I obviously love Devontae, but you look at the Rams, they got 2 receivers here in the top 10. You look at Joe Burrow, he's got 2 receivers here listed. Jackson Smith and Jigba, obviously, with Sam Darnold. Justin Jefferson is what he is, obviously, no good quarterback there. Detroit Lions, the Cowboys have 2 receivers listed here. The Patriots have now acquired AJ Brown. I mean, the Eagles are like not really here anymore. And a lot of the early thinking with Jalen Hurts' career was that you're going to want to put great playmakers around him, to help the team succeed, which was to me a good line of thinking. Have they abandoned that? Do they believe more in the quarterback to elevate? Does it hurt Jalen Hurts? How do you see that part of it, John?
Well, it doesn't, from a pure football sense, it doesn't help. Doesn't help Jalen Hurts, obviously. But he wasn't traded from a football perspective. So I think, people Forget that. If everything was fine, if there were no other issues, he'd still be here. So, I mean, you have to, in my opinion, you have to start from that position to understand what they're trying to do. It's not like they wanted to trade AJ Brown from a football standpoint. Just felt they had to move on. Chemistry, didn't want to go through what they've been going through with the passive aggressive stuff. It just felt it was time. The shelf life was over. But just from a football standpoint, obviously, and I've said that from day one, you're not getting better. There's some people who seem to be trying to talk themselves in. Well, they're deeper and they got more. No, the old adage, when you get a good glue guy, I remember Mo Williams, a running back, when I covered Minnesota. Mike Tice had a great quote. It's like, you can't win with 53 Mo Williams, but you can't win without one. The point is you need those types of players, but you need the real stars, obviously. You can't have a bunch of role players to put you over the top. Now, he can make a strong argument that, Jalen's had AJ Brown, Devontae Smith for a long time now, and the passing offense was diminishing as things went forward from 22 on. 2023 diminished, 2024 diminished, 25 diminished. That's pretty significant. Now, there's a lot of context, risk-averse style of play. You add Saquon Barkley, the different coordinators. You can make all the excuses you want, use all the crutches you want, but at the end of the day, it got worse every single year. Literally. Can it be worse than it was last year? Well, sure it can. But, that's why they're trying the new offensive scheme, trying to do some different things. Still think it's going to be a heavy run team. But that's a roundabout way to answer your question, which is no, they're not better. They didn't help Jalen Hurts from a pure football perspective, but they helped him from a locker room perspective. They helped him probably
which I don't even know if I buy.
Well, by that, I don't mean popularity. I meant no controversy, no passive aggressiveness.
Yeah, all right, that's fair. But just the way you explained AJ Brown standing in the locker room.
Yeah, I don't mean popularity. I mean just nothing, Well, and maybe that comes from somebody else. I doubt it, but maybe it comes from somebody else. But that's why they traded him. I mean, the contract alone, even if he played poorly, and people want to spin that because they dislike him now, and they want to point to one game in the playoff game, and he did this, and he didn't try, and yada, yada, yada. They wouldn't have moved on from a contract standpoint. Even if that was true, and it's not, they wouldn't have moved on.
Right.
So none of it has anything to do with football. And the quote Fowler used about AJ, and this does bring up, the assumption that Devontae is going to be the guy, and I'm in that group. I think Devontae is going to be fine, but it is going to be more difficult for him. And the quote he got was from a coordinator who said he changes the coverages people play. Everything will be rolled his way, and it will lighten the box for Josh McDaniels up there to really get the run game going. He gives them run after catch explosion, isolation down the field, which we saw time and time again, 50-50 plays. that they didn't have in New England. That's what they did have in Philadelphia for years. And yeah, they're not replacing that with Mekhi Lemon and Dontavian Wicks. Certainly not in the
And they
short term.
maintain their expectations. So that's the part that I think is tricky, to be able to go and achieve the expectations that they had while getting worse at the position. We'll see how it works. All right, John, we got Mike Gill in the green room. I got one super chat to read before we get to Mike Gill. It's my guy, Terrence the Jeweler from Forever Mine Diamonds. What's up, brother? He says this, J-Mac, do you think we're a legitimate Super Bowl contender by just fixing first down? Also, do you think Shady McCoy is a Hall of Famer? It's a big debate in Harrisburg right now.
Harrisburg. On the first one, yes. I think if they fix first down, they'll be a Super Bowl contender. I really think it's that simple. I think everything else takes care of itself. If you're in third and manageable instead of third and long, that makes it much easier for the offense as a whole. And so, yeah, I think that's the key to it all. And I think that's what the Eagles are trying to fix. I just don't know if they're going about it the right way. As far as Shady, I mean, understand, I'm really, and we're going to have Paul Domowitz on later in the week, and he's the Hall of Fame selector for Philadelphia. He's got a new book coming out, so we're going to talk to him on Sam Mills. So we're going to talk to him about that. I'm really tough on Hall of Fame votes, and I didn't cover Shady, obviously, tremendous, gifted player. I would say he's a borderline guy, and I would say just out, but I got a really high bar when it comes to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So that doesn't mean he's not going to get in, but I would say just under the demarcation line. And if you look at Pro Football Reference, which I think is the best, and I think I always turn people to that, there are Hall of Famers in that he has outperformed. So it's sort of like the Eli Manning thing. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, but I know he's getting into the Hall of Fame at some point. I'll say the same thing, Shady, different, not comparing because he's a much better player at his position. Much tougher case. I would say the same thing. I'd put him just under, but I think eventually he'll get in.
Good stuff there. I think Terrence is right. He was on the All-Decade too. I'm not sure if you mentioned that there. So, well, a good debate on Shady McCoy, actually. So appreciate everybody being here today. Don't forget to hit that like button for us this morning. We got the great Mike Gill set to join us here on Birds 365. Terrence, thank you for the super chat, brother. Let's bring Mike Gill in now. You can follow him at Mike Gill Show on all the platforms. Subscribe to his YouTube channel. Listen to him at 97.3 ESPN. It's the #1 sports talk show down the shore. And in all of South Jersey. Mike, welcome to the program this Wednesday morning, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I, too, would say I'm a very tough grader for the Hall of Fame, and Shady would come up short.
Oh, we got two come up. I think we're both going to be wrong, though, Mike, which is fine, But I am probably too harsh, especially with more modern players. Because, and that's probably a bias I have that I have to get over because, guys I watched or I heard about and you just become legendary. Like I talk about Earl Campbell all the time. Like to me, it's like Earl Campbell's I don't know what to say. He's the most legendary football in my mind, just football player, just the way, the style he played. And it's a different game now. But, the guys where Pro Football Reference, I was talking about the Hall of Fame, the guys he's around are Curtis Martin, who's in the Hall of Fame, but I don't think should be in there. Leroy Kelly. I don't think he should be.
Yeah, I would say Shady led the league in rushing one time. I think he had a I mean, he is the all-time leader in a franchise, so that might be something for him. That certainly says you're the best of that franchise. But he only led the league in rushing once. He was only over 1,200. Like, I think 1,200 yards is that number for me. That, like, if you go over that number multiple times, then I start to open my eyes a little bit more. I think he's gone over that number maybe twice. So he's like right there on the borderline. I wouldn't be like Eli Manning to me is no,
he's not a Hall of Famer. The only reason I compared that, like, Shady's a much better player at his position than Eli Manning was. I don't mean to compare it from that. I mean to compare it from, like, there's no way I'm putting Eli Manning in the Hall of Fame. You and I have probably had this discussion. And there's also no doubt in my mind he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. So, just because my opinion, he's going in, and I think it has more to do with his surname and that kind of stuff. But
absolutely.
But when you think about Shady, you're right. That hurts him. The two, he's an All-Pro twice, which hurts him. Now, he played in Adrian Peterson's prime, so that kind of limited him. So that hurts that he only has two. He was on the all-decade team, though, so they look at that as a big measuring stick as well. I think he's just short. But
it would be less egregious if Shady got in than Manning. That's what I was going. I wouldn't be as like Manning to me is like when we do these lists and we talk about Jalen Hurts. And people go crazy because he's like 17. That's like where Eli Manning would. No one would complain if you said, "Hey, Eli Manning's 17th." Well, he won 2 Super Bowls. He's 17th because when you watch him, you're like, he's 17th. He's an average guy who's a 500 quarterback who happened to be the quarterback of teams that won Super Bowls. Not because he sucks, because he had moments.
Yeah, he had runs.
Yeah, Manning to me is right in the middle of the road. He has no business being in the conversation for Super Bowl outside of the fact that he won 2 Super Bowls. He doesn't win 2 Super Bowls. Not one
he's not
person
even in the
is pounding the
conversation.
table for him.
Even with his name, he's not in the conversation.
No, not even
correct.
close. It's the fact that he won. And listen, he should be rewarded and talked about for the 2 Super Bowls. He's a part of them, a big part of them. And they were 2 historic runs that he went on. I mean, on the road to get them there as a 9-7 team, that's something you need to talk about. And I guess the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Joe Namath gets in, and that sets the bar as you could be a moment getter and get in. Because Joe Namath is not a Hall of Famer either, other than the fact that he's Joe Namath.
And I'm the exact opposite. I don't know about you, Mike, but I'm like, long-term consistency is what makes you a Hall of Famer.
I feel like one of the things we've done in sports in general is we have minimized the regular seasons to almost wanting them to be irrelevant. And I feel that 90% of what you do in your career is in the regular season. That's where you have to be special the most. To have postseason success. You can't have postseason success unless you have elongated regular season success. And we as a society have just said, I don't give a shit about the regular season and what you do in there anymore. And that's why all this stuff is convoluted, because Manning has won 2 Super Bowls where he played 90% of his games. He was just average. And we've lost that in sports. We've just lost the importance of what the regular season does for your legacy and your career. Now, your career and your legacy get the cherry on the top by winning in the ultimate level of the playoffs. But you have to put together a resume to get there, and that has been thrown out the window in sports today.
Yeah, well, you know me and those Ricky Bobby rules. I say it all the time. It's insanity. I'll tell you what, if Eli Manning gets in, you better go back to Jim Plunkett. Jim's still yeah, he's still with us. I'm 90% sure. I got to look it up though. But he won 2 Super Bowls for those who don't know. And by the way, he was, I believe, I'm trying to look it up as we talk. Yeah, 72 and 72 as a starter. Dead even.
Well, Namath was 62 and 63, so he had a losing record as a starting quarterback and became a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and Jim is not in the Hall of Fame for those who don't know. So
no, I mean there are so many guys that have had postseason success that I don't think, like Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl and an MVP of the Super Bowl. And by the way, I think Joe has been better in his later stages than he was during his early stages as throwing the football and having passing success. But when he's the quarterback of the Ravens, I don't think anybody's saying this. Well,
I got news for you. I thought you were going down the route, and I'll say it. Joe Flacco's a better quarterback than Eli Manning. There's no freaking debate. There's absolutely no debate. And you talk about the biggest one of all, and I don't know if he's getting in, but if you talk to people in football, he is a no doubt about it Hall of Famer. And he just restarted. No, he just restarted. No. He just restarted his clock. He'll forever be compared to Eli, Phillip Rivers. That is a Hall of Fame quarterback. But he didn't win Super Bowls. Mm-hmm. And he just restarted. He's got to
Ironically,
5 years.
You said he restarted his clock. He came back this past year.
I wonder if that restart will help him actually.
I don't know. Well, it depends who's coming.
It depends who retires, right?
Right.
But I mean, he is so well respected around the league. But it's so weighted towards, and it's so silly when you talk to Nick Sirianni. How many times have you heard him say ultimate team game, and all anybody does, did he win a Super Bowl? There's fucking 53 guys.
Well, and then did he win the Super Bowl? And then some that do win the Super Bowl, it's because their defense or whatever. So I mean, there's always like the
goalposts are always moving. People hate to admit they're wrong. I've found that out over the years.
Well, and Jalen is the living embodiment of the goalposts being moved all over the place because it's like, well, you can't. I told you, I already said this before. They can't win a Super Bowl again with Jalen Hurts. It's like he won one. It's like, but he can't do it twice. Therefore, he stinks. Can't do it 2 times.
Well, those people are hilarious. He can't, the so-and-so insert name can't win a Super Bowl. People are hilarious. And then you'll say, he can't do it again. Like you say, what? He's already been to 2.
Right.
If freaking Aaron Cepas could kick the ball right, who knows? Maybe he's got 2 already.
That is like, but it is like, it's hard in our minds to say, like, a team that has never, who perpetually never won our entire childhood growing up into the young adulthood, now all of a sudden got to won another one, and then just say, well, they're going to get to 2 or 3 more with this guy playing quarterback. I do understand how that is a blockage in your brain, but to say that they can't because of him, that's preposterous.
Yeah. Howie's already proven he can build rosters. So you never say never because people like Jim Plunkett and Jeff Hostetler and Nick Foles. Sorry to upset. I don't want to step to you. Won Super Bowls. So stop with that. It's more comical with the guys the top tier guys who haven't won, like Joe Burrow, or for years it was Matthew Stafford until he actually won. I used to have drop down arguments with Jody like you and I used to have with basketball with Matthew Stafford. Jody's like, he stinks. I'm like, the dude's awesome. Nobody knows it.
Yeah.
And now they know it because he got to a good organization, good team. And ironically, he was better in Detroit than he is now. Obviously, as an aging player. Now there's other parts, the intangibles. He's gotten more experience and all that kind. But the point is, the guy was great the whole time.
Yeah.
And he's a no-brainer, Hall of Famer, by the way.
And
but yeah, good discussion. Good comments.
The list season, which had the quarterbacks, had Stafford at number 1 at this advanced age in his career. The executives in this league think he's the number 1 quarterback in this league.
Well,
right
who
now.
was number 1? It was who? It wasn't Stafford.
I thought it was Stafford. Was it Stafford?
I don't think so. Who was
Mahomes?
number 1?
I thought was 2.
I'm thinking of my own list. I had him higher, and I had him 2. So
yeah, I thought that Jeremy Fowler list the other day. I could have sworn he was number 1.
I think he was 3rd.
Maybe
I think Josh Allen was 1.
Josh Allen was 1. Yeah, Mahomes was 2. You're right. You are correct.
Yeah. And I had him on 2 on my list, which we did on the show. But either way, that's pretty stinking good, and deservedly so. Coming off the season he had last year.
The only list I care about is, are you number 1 on the day you need to be number 1? That's it. I don't care where you are on the list any other day of the week other than the day I need you. And if you're number 1 on that day, you could be anywhere you want on these lists at any other time of the year.
And too many people, you know what? And you know what, Mike, on that day, and I know what you're saying, but other people say the day I bet on them, that'll be the determination.
That's true, John.
Yeah.
That to me is where the line of demarcation is for me. Are you number 1 on the day you need to be number 1? And other than that, you might be 17 one day, 4 the other day, 27 one week, 1 the week after that. Don't matter to me. Just be number 1 when I need you.
Well, that's
Mike, it's going to be harder to do that this year, though. You know, with I think a lesser talent around Jalen and offensively.
Well, you know, one of the discussions we had yesterday was some of the things that have to go right for the Eagles to make a Super Bowl run, and it's Jalen Hurts has to be able to become a timing passer, an in-rhythm timing passer in an offense that he's never really triggered before. So you're basically saying we're going to go blindly throw an offense in and have you run an offense that you've never run to this stage of your career after having the success that you've had. That's a big gamble that you're taking at this stage of this guy's career.
I would argue crazy gamble.
There you go.
That's been my whole problem. I just don't understand. Typically, I say all the time, what defines good sports organizations to me, Mike, is when they make decisions and they make sense. Doesn't mean it's going to be right, because you know it's an inexact science when you're talking about evaluation and personnel and players, and so many things can go wrong off the field or court or whatever sport you're playing, ice, yada, 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 that derail you. But if you're making good decisions in the moment, the Eagles typically make decisions that make sense, and everybody sees that. This one makes no sense, which needs
not on the surface. Not on the surface, it doesn't. You know, and a lot of it is because of the perception of the quarterback. Many times over the years, when the offense has struggled, it has been in the passing game. And why has it struggled in the passing game? Many people opine that is, well, the quarterback doesn't like to do X, Y, and Z, and the X and the Y are things that they're now going to ask him to do prominently in this offense. So we're going to find out if our past opinions on why the passing game struggled are actually accurate or not.
Well, I would argue too that, you know, for the people that want to use that type of thinking as an excuse for Jalen Hurts, well, then aren't the Eagles saying we made a mistake by limiting him, by being so risk averse? If he can do this the entire team, well, why the hell didn't you do it the entire time?
Exactly. Why? Now, Is it because Sirianni finally looked at himself in the mirror? And as I said before, when they hired the new offensive coordinator and this new style of offense, does he look at himself in the mirror and say, okay, my pop gun offense got us as far as it can go. I concede. Somebody else can put their own offensive spin on things here?
Well, that's the crazy thing, because I've talked to the guy a lot over the years, and he didn't think it was in a pop gun offense.
Well, he might not have, but at some point he finally gave up the reins to it.
Yeah, but did he? That's where and this, by the way,
wonder.
Yeah, that I do not think that's the case. I
So
think what
this is an interesting, all coming together like at one point here. Sirianni has won. I have no problem with Sirianni. I'm not one of these people that says, like, what does he do? He needs to go. He doesn't do anything. Not at all. That being said, you are coming to the nexus of the universe here where you're running out of – I think you've run out of offensive coordinator hires. Like, what happens if this guy gets a head coaching job?
Then, what do you mean? He got 2 on the staff. He hired 3 guys who we interviewed.
Okay. Well, that's fair. But, okay, so – you have guys that possibly would be, but now you go into another offensive coordinator. Now, this is best case scenario. Or let's say the offense struggles and you had this guy. Well, are they going to get rid of another coordinator or are they going to get rid of you? Like, do you leave the coordinator there and then have to bring in a new head coach, and the new head coach has to be stuck with that coordinator? Like, this has ugliness written all over it outside of winning the Super Bowl.
Well, I'll tell you this. If you're firing the head coach, you're not keeping the coordinator.
That's my point, is you're bringing in a new head coach. So it means you're getting – and then the quarterback's still here. So then he's going to go through another coordinator?
Yeah.
So you're almost saying to the new head coach, we can't bring in a coordinator because we don't want the quarterback to have to go through another guy. So you're stuck with this guy.
Well, I certainly don't think you're getting an in-demand candidate. Now, that's worked for the Eagles in the past.
They don't seem to care about that. And if the offense struggles, do you get rid of the coordinator? Do you get rid of the coach? Do you promote the struggled coordinator to head coach so that you don't lose him?
I think there's look, John always says it's easier to replace a coach than a quarterback. That's obviously correct. But if the offense struggles this year, you really think Howie Roseman is going to be comfortable bumping Jalen Hurts to $60 million? $60+ million?
Most likely no.
Right. So, I mean, then the question becomes, is it a nuke? The coach is out, the quarter is that what it becomes? We were talking about this yesterday. We got a super chat. What is if that does happen? Let's just live in fairy tale world for a second. If they do fall flat, what is the trade value of the quarterback?
Don't know. We brought this up around draft time. My buddy covers the Raiders, and I remember during that draft, he was a big Jalen Hurts fan, and he wanted the Raiders to draft Hurts in that draft. And over all these years that we have talked, I said to him, would the Raiders take Jalen Hurts over, instead of Mendoza, and just start with a guy who's already, and, he didn't think that was too rich. So you're talking about, that was the number 1 overall pick. So he wasn't worth that. Is he worth a first-round pick? Is it multiple first-round picks? I don't know. When you have a guy who's a Super Bowl winning MVP quarterback who's done nothing but win, you would think that would fetch you a pretty penny. But I'm not sure with this particular player that's the case. The executives just told you what they thought of him. They look at him somewhere in the middle of the road.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue when it comes to value in a potential trade, he's also got a no trade clause, so he can kind of steer that. So you have to have you got to get over a lot of hurdles. But if he agrees and he knows, look, he needs a new start. There are quarterback desperate teams that will give you significant significant assets back, but it won't be as much as people think, like 2 first-round picks for a Super Bowl winning. No, the number that Zander just said, remember, you're going to have to pay him $55 million, $60 million. So I do think you'll get a first-round pick, but that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
And a really poor season could even scuttle that. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Like, you wonder, Jalen, it's seemingly over the years, the escapability, the usage of his legs, the improvision has diminished and diminished and diminished. Has it diminished because his skills have diminished in that area, or has it diminished because they haven't asked him or they don't want him doing that stuff? Has it diminished because that area of his skill set is diminishing? And if they're all diminishing at the same time, his skill set and all of that, if that area is out of his game, he's not going to keep getting
that's
better.
My concern.
He's not going to keep getting better as a player at that position. You would assume that he has hit his peak.
That's my concern. I think that should be everybody's concern. If the +1 in the running game is not involved, he's not the same player. Period.
Yeah, and that's why number 2 on our list of things that need to go right for them to make a deep run and get to the Super Bowl was the offensive line's run blocking, which last year was not what you've come to expect from this team. And that really exposes your passing game a heck of a lot more when you can't run the ball. I like what was it? Was it a super chatter or somebody who asked about if they're just better on first down?
Yeah.
That's a huge key for this team. Because I've often said, if you took the Kellen Moore team with Saquon getting 2,000 yards and just called the same exact plays as he did, the offense still would have been a disaster, because on first down, he's getting 7 and 8 yards a pop. And last year, you're getting 1.5 yards if you're lucky on first down. So you're just constantly behind the 8 ball last year, whereas 2 years ago, you were always in second and short and able to just open up the whole playbook.
Yep. The whole key to it. And by the way, that's what they're trying to do. That's exactly what they're trying to do. Fix first
I still think that the Hurts discussion is complicated, because if Hurts looks like he did even in 24, he goes into next season with $22 million of guaranteed money. They have to address the contract next summer. Now, maybe they could do something where like they switch it to fully guaranteed or something. I don't think that would happen, but maybe they would do that. I mean, are you making Jalen a top paid quarterback on 2024 production?
So a couple of years ago, I believe Jody was still here, so it's that long ago. You had asked me, John, Jalen was coming up on this particular contract, and you were saying that, a starting quarterback in this league gets like $25 million. And at that time, I could not wrap my head around the fact that you're going to pay Jalen. Now he ends up going to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl. So that kind of changes the dynamics of all the stuff there. But, again, it goes back to the executives, the scouts, the coaches in this league look at him one way. His paycheck looks at him another way. And that is a tough divide right there for people to come to terms with.
It's an enormous divide.
Yes.
And it's so weird. And Zander knows this. For some reason, I have no idea. Eagles fans hate Justin Herbert. I never knew that they paid so much attention to the Los Angeles Chargers, but they do, evidently. And I'm exaggerating because they obviously don't. If they watched the Eagles play the Chargers last year and saw what Justin Herbert did to them with no Joe Alt, no Rashawn Slater, who, by the way, that's about the closest you come in this league, that duo, to Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata. That's how good they are. And he's got no offensive lineman, and he wills that team to victory, getting his ass kicked the entire way.
What do you have? What do you play with? A broken something?
Yeah.
Hand or something?
Yeah. and just physical. And he was the one extending plays and running the football. And sure enough, I put it up
down
there.
And 7 run at the end of the game to extend that drive.
Yeah, I put it up. He was number 6 on my list, and I got all the hate. Oh, you put Justin Herbert against Jalen. And when I say this, and I'll say this clearly, there's not an executive in this league, including Howie Roseman, that would take Jalen Hurts over Justin Herbert. I'm sorry if that hurts the baby ears. There's not one. Not one.
No.
Including that are employed at the Jefferson Health Training Complex. Not that they would admit it publicly, but I mean, come the F on. If you can't see the difference there, I can't help you.
Yeah, well, that puts Jalen in a very difficult financial crunch where, he's going to probably want something, and the Eagles are going to look in a different direction in that number. And I got to imagine there's a big divide there between player and team. And that ultimately might be, the stare down, because you get to a point in these contracts, which is ridiculous, that you're on the last year of it and you're saying, well, I can't play on the last year of my deal because, and it's like, you sign the deal for 5 years, you play the 5 years, and at the end of I'm not coming back on that last year of that deal. Then what did you sign it for? Like, we have this ridiculous thing in sports now where when you get to the last year of it, you no longer can actually play on the last year of it because now you want something new.
Yep.
And that last year is going to be a huge divide because you could make an argument that the last year of that deal is more than the Eagles want to pay him on his next deal for sure.
Well, they would, to Zander's point before, he's under contract for, I have to pull it up, but far
2029,
longer,
I believe.
Yeah, far longer than next year. But the problem is next year is the only $22 million in guarantees. So what would typically happen is if he played well, now it would have happened this year, by the way. So if he played well last year, they would have been proactive because that's how they typically are. But we are where we are. So if he plays well in 2026, what happens will be he's got $46 million salary in 2028. 2027, it's 36 million. So you turn that into a roster bonus and you guarantee the entire thing. So his guarantees are 22. You guarantee that 36 and bang, and you extend it a year on the back end, like they did with Saquon. That's typically how they would handle it. And so they have the framework. I talk about this all the time. The Eagles set up their contracts so they can do this, but they also protect themselves. If the performance dives, they can get out of his deal pretty easily by 2028, just from a financial standpoint. And as they've shown with AJ and now with everybody, they'd be willing to move on next year if they have to. And they do a good job setting up their contracts so they can do that and turn the salary into a roster bonus. Then he's got fully guaranteed money, and then you kick it down another year. And that's ultimately what I think they'll be looking to do if he plays well. If he doesn't play well, you'd prefer not to move on next year because of the hit you would be taking, but they can do it and they will do it.
Right.
And they've proven that time and time again. So it is a crossroads year, as many have said and reported. He's got to play well this year. He's got to play well.
And the team didn't set him up for absolute success by throwing a new offense his way.
I think he's got to play. I think he has to be a difference maker this year. More so the 2024, he played well. 2024 was Saquon's team. There was a lot of, was Jalen the reason they won? I think he needs to elevate everybody around him this year for Howie Roseman to shell out that deal, like he did in 22. 22, nobody was questioning that. I mean, Jalen Hurts did that in spades.
What was the key thing that he did in 22 that he didn't do in 23 and 24 and 25?
I would assume ran the ball.
He ran the ball.
Right.
He was a big part of the run game. He was a huge part of the RPO. He made the right decision every single time. It was either I'm going to hand it or keep it, and he picked the right decision 98% of the time on whether to hand it off or to keep it. And since that year, the league has been stricter on the RPO. That has been eliminated from his success story. And then the option for him to run or pass or keep has just been smothered seemingly since that year.
They did tighten up. That's part of it. I talk about that all the time. And you know, they're calling it correctly now. But he was still impactful as a runner in 2023 and 2024. Last year was the big drop off as a runner. And that's the concern. He wasn't quite as dominant in 23 and 24, although his success rate, if you're a nerd, was higher in 2023 than 2022 from a running perspective. So that really didn't come into play until last season, taking away the +1 impact. The NFL did make it tougher with the way they tightened up on the RPOs, but he was still effective. Last year, he wasn't effective. And that, to me, is the problem. But, Zander, you brought up 2024. Why is it like he did not play well as a passer in 2024?
That's what I'm saying. I agree. That's what I'm saying. If he does that again, I don't think that's enough for Howie to say, okay, yep, here's the new deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a slow decline from 22 to 23 to 24 to 25. In the passing game. And by the way,
but if you look at the rushing game, John, in the rushing game in 2021, he had 784 yards in 15 games. He went to 760 at 15 games, but 600 last year in 17 games and 150. He had about the same of attempts, and he dropped about 60 yards. Then he dropped another 30 yards in 150. So the attempts have been about the same, but his yardage has dropped, slowly, bang.
And it fell off a table last year.
And then last year, right, it was just not a part of the game, his game at all. So you're seeing where that's trending.
Yeah, which is not and we don't know if it was at Jalen's discretion, the team's discretion, but for whatever reason. And the problem now, Mike, is they've legislated out of the offense. You're putting a quarterback under center. He's not going to be +1 in the running game.
Right. Right. No, that's one of the questions I would have in this offense is you're essentially going to be using him under center and asking for a lot more timing and everything. So where does that lead? How much room does that lend to have where his strong suit is be a part of this offense? I don't know. Where do they incorporate his ability to improvise? You talked about Herbert, that 3rd down and 7. He just takes off. He sees the gap, the lane. He sees the sticks. He goes and takes it. That's an instinctual thing that he does. They don't put a lot of called stuff in.
No.
Where are you putting those called runs in for Hurts? But he also didn't do the 3rd and 7. I see a lane and I'm just going to take it. That has been gone from him as well. The instinctual part of taking off. That also has not been there.
Yep. At Mike Gill Show, make sure you follow Mike on the X platform at Mike Gill Show as well on YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, 97.3, the Sports Bash, drive time 2 to 6 every day, Monday through Friday, 97.5 on the weekends. Mike Gill's all over the place. I had to, before I let you go, I got to talk about the All-Star game. Boy, that to me, Mike, is I joked that was a celebration of modern baseball. 100 pitchers, nobody can
27
hit.
strikeouts.
Nobody can hit. You got 1,000 pitchers, and the MVP is a 250 hitter in the All-Star game. That is modern baseball.
27 combined strikeouts. I said the labor strife that we have should be fixing the broken youth baseball system so that we don't groom kids to have 27 strikeouts.
Launch angle.
27 strikeouts should not be an acceptable way to teach how to play this game.
You would think. Why is there no Sean McVay that adapts? I love Billy Bean. I love the movie. I say it all the time. I think it's one of the best movies of all time, even though it's a sports movie. I think it's great. Like when he was doing it by himself, it was a huge advantage. Now that everybody does it, this is my problem with the Eagles and their offense too. 16 teams are doing it. It becomes, all right, who does it the best? When is the guy coming along in baseball that zigs back in another direction and says, you know what? I'm going to teach these fuckers how to hit the right way.
Yeah, well, that's how we got to where we are now. Launch angle is just a gimmick to say, hey, I'm teaching something. Everybody else was teaching how to hit one way. I'm just going to make up something and say, come pay me for lessons because I'm going to teach it different. And then somebody went to that guy and said, well, he's teaching this. And then the guy across the street said, well, everyone's going to him. I'll cut into his thing and I'll teach it. And then it just starts spreading that way. So, yeah, somebody's got to go back. But it all starts at the youth level where the one shop in town teaches everybody. And it's like, well, that place is teaching something a little different. And here we are. All this generation of kids are now infiltrating into the majors that have been taught this launch angle swing to try to combat the velocity that these pitchers are throwing with. So it's almost like, listen, they're going to blow the ball past me, but if I make contact, it's going to go somewhere. And it's okay if I strike out because the other result is I'm going to hit the ball over the fence. So we have this generation and that's what they've been taught, and that's where we are. And I don't know, because these pitchers throw so hard, but part of that problem is they're throwing so hard, but they can't last more than 3, 4, 5 innings of any success.
Well, I think
they're just saying you could throw 102 miles an hour, just empty the tank, and they can only do it for They can only do it for 3, 4 innings. The best ones can. Very rarely, in the youth leagues, very rarely are these kids pitching more than 4 or 5 innings. Like they don't go any more than they throw 85 pitches and they're in the 3rd inning. A lot of these kids.
You got to do something drastic. And that's Major League Baseball. Look, sometimes you have to do things to make the game more entertaining. When Bob Gibson was too dominant, they lowered the pitching mound. Look, it shouldn't be fair. Certainly wasn't fair to Bob Gibson, but
well, sometimes they took the shift away. They put the pitch clock in.
Well, it took them way too long to take the shift away. That was the easiest fix. But here's the dramatic change you have to make to combat what you're talking about. Limit the number of pitches you can use in any game. Pitchers.
John Smoltz and a couple others have thrown this out, that you tie the DH to the starting pitcher, and that when you pull the starting pitcher out of the game, you lose the DH, so that it makes you want.
It's got to be more drastic. Got to be more drastic. You have to limit the number of bodies you can use.
Then his other thing was, and you can only have 11 pitchers on the roster. So good luck having an opener. Good luck taking your pitcher out in the 4th inning and having to use a pitcher in the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th inning of a game. You're going to leave your starting pitcher out there longer. So, yeah, there have been a lot of people who have said you've got to teach, these starting pitchers to be able to throw. Listen, I deal with it. I coach youth baseball, but my team is free. I don't charge people to play on my team. So I'm not trying to make money off of you.
You're not corrupting them people?
We do not charge to play on my team. My team is free of charge. And we'll be working with the kid, and the parent will say, we take our kid to a lesson for that. Okay. I don't get in the way of that. You go pay. I'm not, bemoaning those people want to make money, but just know that that's a business. They're trying to make money. So, and I've seen it, believe me, I've seen a lot of kids who were really good players and they left, and it's like, what happened to that guy? And, They have a swing that they're teaching that swing's not everybody can hit like Mike Trout. You can't teach every kid to hit like Mike Trout hits. Mike Trout's a unicorn. And if you're trying to teach an entire generation to hit like the unicorn of that generation, you're going to get a lot of failures. Now, the outlier is that guy made it. He's in the majors. He got drafted. That's great. But is this the baseball that you were hoping to see from that player when they got there? Probably not.
Have you ever seen anything like Mike Trout? How many years has Mike Trout played in?
I was shocked to hear, obviously Mike played in the same high school league that I played in.
Yeah, by the way, he's not from Philly either. Can they stop saying that?
Down here we're all in the Philadelphia
Delaware Valley. All right,
sports
fine.
region. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Where is Mike Trout from? Where do
He's
you
a
actually
short guy. He's a short
Millville.
guy.
He's about 45.
Well,
minutes.
yeah, Millville's, but shorter.
Millville is in a weird. It is like, so where Atlantic City is, it's like 45 minutes west of Atlantic City, which means it's still about an hour or 45 minutes from Philly. It's just due west of here. I'm an hour from Philly from where I'm at. So I go
right. Where is Millville? It's like Vineland, isn't it? Somewhere around there.
Yeah, it's right next to Vineland.
Yeah.
Millville and Vineland play each other on Thanksgiving Day. Yeah.
Delaware, I'm fine if you say Delaware Valley, but the guys have been playing.
But that was the point I was making, is the fact, he's obviously huge in our area because our listening base all play Millville High School in sports. And they said last night he hasn't been in the All-Star game in 7 years. And I was like, geez, 7 years. And then the fact that this is his 19th season, I thought I said, well, you got to be kidding. It was either 15th or 19th or 16th or something. But the fact that he's played that many years was mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, and still every single one of them.
But keep in mind, the Mike Trout effect is what we're talking about. Like where we live, the fact that Mike Trout became Mike Trout, now everybody's parent wants their kid to be the next Mike Trout down here.
Good luck
and it has
that.
caused a huge issue with everybody chasing this Mike Trout ghost that will never be accomplished.
Yeah.
But that's like, think about it. When like a big college football program wins a championship, like in the 70s, and that's the only, and that the fan base is constantly holding you to the standard of that championship 40 and 50 years later, that's how you get these fan bases that become irrational because they want that championship in the 70s that is no longer attainable for that program.
Yeah, I'm with you. And by the way, you see, because Mike has played so long, I
think he came up in 09, I think was his
long time. Basically you could mark it down. Bad year, 285, good year, 315, yada. Now over the past, and part of it is he's getting older and injured. He doesn't hit for average anymore because
nobody does.
Nobody does. Exactly. It's frustrating, but and I'm a big baseball fan, but not of the modern game. It is tough to watch because, as Mike said, there's no way.
He got drafted in 09, so
there's no action. It's either a strikeout or a home run.
Yeah. Well, and you heard Harper last night when he came to the plate. How cool was that, though, that the pitcher and the catcher in the first inning were talking to each other, and he's just telling them what pitch he was going to throw. He's like, all right, let's go with the slider here. All right, let's go with because they both and they're getting interviewed in the middle of it. I mean, so he's throwing a pitch, and Joe Davis is in his ear doing the play-by-play. I mean, that's got to be a little weird. That being said, Harper comes to the plate, and he's like, this guy's freaking nasty, like the pitcher that he's facing. And all these pitchers that no one's
They're all
ever heard
nasty.
of before. Right. Yeah. No one's ever. This guy threw a split finger last night that was absolutely ridiculous. And you're thinking, who's hitting that pitch? There's not a person on planet Earth hitting that pitch. But that's where the pitchers are. And, that's kind of the flip side of this is the guy who can throw 103, but only has to throw one inning. There's a lot of those guys. The starters are the ones that aren't developed. They can't go deep into games because they're being asked to pitch like a reliever. The relievers who only have to throw one inning, they're untouchable.
Yep. And if you, that's what my dramatic limit the number of pitchers you can use. Now, it'll never work because you know who will come out of the woodwork. Oh, the injuries. You're creating a safety issue. Yada yada yada. I'm telling you, the only way to solve it is to. Everybody can't have 5 guys, 6 guys that you're talking about, Mike, and they do because the game's over if you get to the 5th inning, because these guys are just coming in throwing 103. If they have any control whatsoever, you're cooked.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You're cooked.
Well, that's another. You got guys throwing 102, 103. They have no command. They can't throw strikes. They're all over the place. The guy last night hits the guy in the hand. Now, hopefully he's okay and nothing happens there. But that's the thing. You're throwing 102. You don't know where it's going. Can't throw strikes. I mean, it's just the saying is we don't care how hard you throw ball for, because so many of these guys, their walks are outrageous. Yeah, the game certainly needs some tweaks, but that's everything in sports these days, we guess, right?
Yeah, I think it's I say the same thing about football and certainly basketball, which has become just chuck up threes. And I say the same thing in baseball. The most exciting parts of baseball are station to station baseball. You're stealing bases. You're trying to move guys. You're trying to, for those who love the game and the strategy of the game. In basketball, I always say Mo Cheeks leading the fast break, and you got Julius Erving coming down one wing and Bobby Jones on the other. Now they veer out. You're taught to veer to the 3-point line.
Yep, 3's better than 2.
Yep.
Sports are changing, boys. Mike, thank you, man. We appreciate you joining in today. Go and follow him at Mike Gill Show. We'll talk to you again next week. Thank you, Mike.
All right, thanks, Mike.
See ya.
Later, man. There's Mike Gill joining us right here on Birds 365. Good stuff there. Good conversation as always.
Get Mike going on baseball. See, he stayed longer. He gets passionate about baseball.
He does, and you two always have a good discussion together. You and Mike Gill. You guys have been making sports talk together for a long time now, Johnny Mac.
Yeah, and he's right about it's not just a baseball problem. It is a sports-wide problem. And look, there's a lot of good to analytics, but I mean, it is also it's also streamlined original thought, and it's hurt the entertainment value of the major sports in America. And that's at the end of the day, it's a business. It's an entertainment business. Right. I get it. Everybody, and I don't blame the people in the sports. I don't blame the people running organizations because their job is different. Their job is to win at all costs. And they think this is the best way to win, whatever, taking threes in basketball, doing what Mike said in baseball. They think that's the right way to win. They're probably right more often than not. So that's their job. But your job as the steward of the game, as the commissioner, as the league, is to make it entertaining for all the fans, not just one team. Like, if the Phillies are good, if the Eagles are good, if the Sixers are good, if the Flyers are good, nobody gives a shit if they're playing. You saw it up live with the Eagles. No one cares that they play an ugly brand of football because they're winning. Tush push. Some people care. The tush push is a perfect example of this. Right. Look, I've said for a while, people don't believe it. But I said, you got to get rid of this nonsense. And they're like, oh, you can't do it. Yeah, you can. Eagles will be fine. They'll figure it out. And it fixed itself because it didn't work as well. But you can, I bring up the two most notable examples are Bob Gibson in baseball, Wilt Chamberlain in basketball. They literally changed the rules because those two players were too dominant. It's not unique. It's been happening for many years because you're trying to make the game more entertaining. And football, more than anything, ironically, and God bless these defensive coordinators, man, because no matter what they do, they figure out a way. And now we have this where all defenses are dominating, not all defenses, but a lot of the top defenses are dominating. A lot of the offensive numbers are down, and the league hates that. So you're going to be seeing adjustments to get more scoring back in the game. And they'll figure it out again. They always do. But yeah, those guys are amazing because they throw everything at them. There's so many rule changes that favor the offense over the past generation. And all of a sudden, Vic Fangio, a big part of this, figured out something that people have a tough time dealing with.
No doubt, Johnny Max. Interesting stuff where the sports world is going. I do agree with you from a business perspective, though. They got to get back to optimizing for that. We'll see how it all changes. John, less than 2 weeks now until training camp for the Eagles, which to me is exciting, obviously, for all the great people listening to our program. I'm sure it's exciting for them as well. For Johnny Mac, I don't know how exciting it is for you, J Mac. I know that means that it's time to get busy, John. But it is close, man. It's right here now with the training camp right around the corner.
Yeah, 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today. God willing, I'll be at the Jefferson Health Training Complex and on the field, on the grass.
So what, they report Tuesday, first practice is Wednesday, right?
Yes.
2 weeks from
Yes.
now, not next week, yeah.
Yes, 2 weeks from today. I will probably be on the field at this time.
Wow, that early, you think? Yeah, I guess, right?
Yeah. Well, practice will start at 10-ish, but yeah.
Yeah, you get out there. We'll probably do our early, just a phoner hit in the morning, and then update people later is what we normally do on those days. So we'll get you guys the schedule. Just keep in mind, everybody, when that does come, we will have a different schedule for Birds 365. Won't be all straight 8 to 10 a.m. like it is all through the off season. So keep an eye on that. Obviously, during training camp, we have to adjust a little bit. John, how many more have we reached the end of all those rankings from the GMs on all the positions? Is that everything? Is there anything left to do?
No, I think there's one more. Let me pop it on.
Safeties, July 16th.
Safeties, yeah, tomorrow.
I don't think we'll be seeing any Eagles on that list.
No Eagles in the safety rank. But again, as usual, they're in more. They're featured a lot. Running back, Saquon was 3. Run it all as we wait for BLG, hopefully popping on cornerbacks. I thought Quinion was a little bit too low at 6, but still, that's very good. And Cooper was 10. I think, and Rick Woolen got a vote or 2. So he was in the others getting votes category. So ton of Eagles all over the lists. And understandably so. They still have a very good roster. They still have a very good
but
roster.
what's interesting too is like the ESPN thing, they rated the Eagles roster as what, number 2, right? Number 2 overall.
That was the best starters. And I believe it was ESPN. BLG will probably remember. There's so many damn lists.
I know there's so many of them, but they had the roster up at 2 or whatever it was, and then they had the quarterback down at 17. Does that maybe show that there's a discrepancy a little bit? What do the Eagles think of that? Again, I think this whole contract thing with Jalen is very interesting and really the number one story to me throughout the next year. Probably not for the football season, but throughout the next year of what the Eagles are going to do with that and how that's going to be played. We'll see what BLG thinks. 2 weeks out, everybody, from training camp, under 2 weeks until the Eagles report, and less than now 30 seconds until BLG comes here on Birds 365. He joins us right now. You can follow him at Brandon Gouton. Read all his work at bleedinggreennation.com. BLJ, good to talk to you, my friend. It's been a little bit. I was away for a couple weeks, then you were away. I've missed you. How you doing on this Wednesday morning?
Doing good, guys. Thanks for having me.
So we were talking about the roster there, BLG. I guess we'll start there as ESPN and Jeremy Fowler continue to go through the list. Today was receiver. Predictably, AJ still snuck in at number 9 in the top 10. Devontae was in the others receiving votes category, but they've been well populated on these lists as a whole. I think it's important. I say it all the time that people define these lists, and ESPN does, to their credit. And they say it's not about 2022. It's not about projecting into the future. It's about who is the best players entering 2026. With that definition, do you think they were fair or unfair or right where they should be with Jalen Hurts?
The tier thing kind of, I think, is a little harsh when you look at how Jeremy Fowler laid that out, and Jalen Hurts was in tier 6 there. He was the 17th quarterback, just behind Trevor Lawrence at 16. That feels like a little too harsh to me. Someone who I think is pretty well balanced on Jalen Hurts, I would say that about myself. That felt a little harsh. I don't think him being outside the top 10 is crazy by any means. Like, I think that's within reason. But put him all the way down there at 17, like just ahead of the likes of Daniel Jones down there at 19th. That feels a little harsh to me. I'd bump him up a little bit there, and then you could say maybe we're splitting hairs. But I think you're saying he's a tier 6 player. There's 5 tiers ahead of him. That didn't feel right to me.
Yeah, well, the tier part of it is interesting because I don't know if that was like the executives. They're because he really didn't do it. So maybe I'll try to contact him to figure that. Like, I don't know why he did that. Like,
yeah. I'm guessing just how the voting was clustered. Maybe
I'm guessing, yeah. And maybe it was clustered from that standpoint. But I did think it was interesting, and I'm with you. I would have put him probably 12, 13-ish entering the season. So I think it's a little bit harsh, but it's tough. Because you do, it's almost human nature. You look back and say, well, he did this and he did this. How could you put him here? But if you can do that, and it's very difficult to be a robot, I mean, maybe 17 was light as far as what he did last season. So I could see it from both standpoints, but I do think he's going to bounce back. I think that about this offense, I've said this, I probably said it to you, BLG. I don't care if they would have hired Sean Mannion, gotten Mike McDaniel, gotten Brian Daboll, hired Josh Grizzard, the 17 people, anybody they hired. I think if they brought back Kevin Patullo, they'd be better on offense because so many people played under their previous demonstrated performance. Mm-hmm. I think there's going to be a natural bounce back for a group of those players. So I think they're going to be better on offense. And I think Jalen's going to be better because I think there is going to be that natural. You see it all the time. Everybody does it. It's not a straight line. You have up years, you have down years. And I think he's still in his prime. I think he's going to be a little bit better, no matter what the offense looks like. Your thoughts?
Yeah, there's definitely some room for, positive regression, if you want to call it that, some progression to the mean. With guys just probably being healthier, not having to play as long of a season as they did in 2024. Some of that baked in. There's concerns. Obviously, we've talked about them every week here. You lose AJ Brown, you lose Jeff Stoutland, so on and so forth. You don't know what necessarily to make of Sean Mannion. It's optimism, but it's not a proven commodity, let's say. But I think ultimately, like where Jalen kind of probably understands how people are viewing him and the skepticism that's out there. Like you couldn't ask, I think, for a better situation for Jalen to be in. I think that's where he thrives. I think he relishes these kind of situations. We've seen it. So that's what y'all wanted to see, after the
Right.
Steelers game in
Yeah,
2024.
yeah.
Like he's made it very apparent that he can try to downplay. He doesn't read things or see things. And you can, you maybe argue the specifics on that, but he clearly is aware. He has an awareness of what is being said about him to some extent. And I think that really only helps him. I don't think he necessarily needs extra motivation, but I don't think it hurts him at all. And I actually do think he thrives on that. So I think a list like this, if you're a big Jalen Hurts fan, you're just excited to see it because you're like, hey, this is going to be more fuel to the fire for him. I think this is the situation he wants to be in.
But how does the wrinkle of the contract thing come in, BLG? Because he does only have $22 million guaranteed next year, and for me, and this is just my opinion on it, if the Eagles are going to pay him again, at that point it would probably be 60 plus million, maybe even 63 plus million, based on the new deal that Mahomes got. He has to get back to being a real difference maker. Like in 22, when we came off the 22 year, I don't think anybody was quite, Jalen Hurts wasn't a dip. He was the reason, arguably, that team was as successful as they were. 24, I don't think you can say the same. 25, obviously, it was what it was. What does Jalen have to do to really get back to the point where the Eagles aren't hesitant on giving him that new contract?
Yeah, I don't think it's just one answer. I think if he has a kind of like an awesome season, but other factors let him down a bit, which you wouldn't expect given the fact that the defense is so strong. You're not expecting him to just be great and the defense is losing a bunch of shootouts. But if that was the case, if he has a kind of year 2022, but they fall out short, for other reasons, I think that's one of the paths. I think another path is if they win a lot, if they go to the Super Bowl, I don't think they're not going to extend him, even if he's kind of what he was in 2024, a little bit more uneven. Even just leading before actually winning Super Bowl MVP, you fall short of that. I still think if they have playoff success with him, I still think he's going to be their guy. I don't think they're going to win playoff games and then move on from him.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
But the opportunity is here for him, and I think he knows that, and he's aware that if he crushes it this year, he's in line to get that next big deal, and he'll be set for multiple more years after that. I don't think that's lost on him.
I was doing a spot on a outside Philadelphia radio show the other day, and it got me thinking. And I want to run this by you, BLG, because they asked me about Sean Mannion, and they were basically pushing me and saying, "Man, that's crazy." And I said to myself, "Have we normalized this too much in Philadelphia? Like nobody knows better than you. BleedingGreenNation.com. You keep your tab on everybody who covers this team and all the different avenues. And there's more in Philadelphia than anywhere else in the NFL.
Yep.
And we're generally, I think, as a group, we're pretty hard and pretty fair. And I started to think about it. And I mean, we started this offensive coordinator process with the mentality that we needed experience and a guy who's done it before and a proven, and names like Mike McDaniel and names like Brian Daboll. And then it turned into what it turned into in 17 interviews. And Sean Mannion, I believe the term was, revealed himself to Nick Sirianni. And they were just framing it as me. This guy's less than 3 years off the playing field. He's got 1 year as a coach, as an entry-level coach. He's got 1 year as a quarterback's coach where he inherited Jordan Love from maybe one of the best quarterback coach of the generation and Tom Clements. And the next year, he's calling plays for the Philadelphia Eagles in this market. Have we too quickly normalized this? Because when you think of it that way, and it was framed to me that way, it's a little nuts.
There's definitely a part of me that is a cynic for sure and thinks about how every offseason you look at going into this year, there's very few fan bases that are going to be like, our team stinks. We're not going to win anything. Fans don't think that way. That's not how fandom works. And I'm not begrudging people for that. That's not fun to go into the season being like, oh, we don't have a shot. So I don't blame people for that. But I think you do kind of have to realize that every other fan base thinks the offensive coordinator, and there's 21 offensive coordinators changes or something like that. Everyone else thinks their guy's going to be awesome too. It's not just Eagles fans thinking Sean Mannion's going to be awesome, and he might be the next great thing in the NFL. I'm not saying that can't happen, but to act like, oh, the Eagles definitely nailed this, and to not also consider that plenty of other fan bases are feeling the same way, and also this is just the time of the year where you kind of talk yourself into everything. I mean, I'm not saying this is the same situation, but once upon a time, the Eagles made Juan Castillo their offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, coach, and that was insane, certifiably insane. It felt that way when it happened, but by the time the season rolled around, I feel like I remember, at least speaking for myself, being like, maybe this will work, and it clearly didn't, and it was an insane move in hindsight. So this is the time of year
I was in high school with his son at the time, by the way. Andre,
wow. Yeah, I remember I was not in Philadelphia at that time, but I remember Andy's explanation. I remember saying, "Yeah, that makes some sense." I did, and it did not make any sense. And you give Andy Reid, you tend to give him more benefit of the doubt, although he wasn't the Andy Reid he is now, but he was still proven at that point. But you bring up a good point. I just, and then the second part was, look, if you believe the reporting, and I certainly do, Mike McDaniel, if they had their druthers, would have been the offensive coordinator for whatever reason. He didn't. Mainly Justin Herbert, but also his wife is from California, so a lot of things go into it. And he wanted to go in a different direction. And then it was Daboll, and Daboll's very close with Robert Saleh, and for some reason he likes Cam Ward. I'm not the biggest fan in the world. But if you start with Mike McDaniel and you end with Sean Mannion, my biggest problem isn't even the lack of experience and the difference there, which is obvious. But this, to me, as I go through it more and more, is that they were hiring a scheme. They framed it like the evil genius. Not that they framed it that was Jordan Mailata, but they framed it like, no, this guy's just really smart, and maybe is it all that. But I think by hook or by crook, they were going to run this scheme, and I just think that's a bad way of doing things. The cliche. You don't hire a scheme. You don't chase a scheme. It seems to me like they were chasing a scheme. Do you agree with that?
I think it's a more than one thing can be true. I think there's truth to that, yes, and that I don't like for the sake of just doing that. But I do think, just based on everything we've heard about Sean Mannion, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because also, what are people going to say? But it does feel especially effusive the way people talk about him, so that's notable. I think it's fair to say that both the players and some of the people who have worked with him, a lot of the people I would say who have worked with him in the past. So I do think there is an element of this that it's not just, hey, this guy knows this scheme. It's that they interviewed him and they're like, wow, this guy seems really bright, and we think he could be the next great mind. So we've talked about this before too, where you're looking at the mind and not just the scheme. So if they nailed that part, if they got the mind right, then I think that's a good move, and I like that. But if it turns out where they just really wanted the scheme, we saw how that went with Rich Scangarello once upon a time. Different kind of situation, but similar. Chasing something. It might not be what they wanted.
Yeah, I wonder, and that's maybe the better way to frame it is, if he had the same mind and he was the same smart, sharp guy, but he was running a different scheme, would he be revealed himself? That is an unanswerable question, but my feeling would be no. What would your feeling be if he was the same sharp guy, but
Mhm.
he ran a different style that they didn't want to run right now.
I think they'd be open to it. I think it's fair to give them the benefit of the doubt, especially with how they have hired people, head coaches especially, and been willing to go. Like they go outside the box sometimes. So I don't think it's fair to say that they were just looking for that. But I do think it is an element in the equation.
How much pressure do you think is on Mannion? I mean, I think the pressure might more be on Nick. Like if Mannion succeeds, it'll be good for Nick. If Mannion fails, well, they're both probably toast, you know?
Zander, I agree. Like you couldn't find someone who agrees more. I still don't think Nick gets enough blame for last year. Everyone wants to make Kevin Patullo the boogeyman. Like the head coach has to have answers. I know he's not the offensive coordinator, but he's the head coach. He's the CEO. And if we compare, like, look, I'm no business person, but let's say you have an organization and you're the CEO and you have this glaring issue, like. You can't just be like, "Oh, that's not my jurisdiction." You're the CEO. Everything's under your jurisdiction, and ultimately, you have to have answers for that. I don't know what that necessarily looks like, but you have to address that in some way. You don't get to be like, "Oh, that's not my fault." Like, no, I think Nick clearly, demonstrably, has not had answers in some of these scenarios where, oh, it's Brian Johnson's fault. Oh, it's Kevin Patullo's fault. Nick Sirianni's the head coach. It goes on him, and it's the inverse too. If the offensive coordinator is great. And like he's part of the operation there. He gets credit for that. Of course, he's the head coach. But you have to blame him when things go badly, especially even more so when it's his guy. Kevin Patullo could not be more his guy. Like that's not like, oh, Nick had some offensive coordinator, foisted upon him. No, not the case. His guy. So, as you can see from me getting worked up about that, yes, that's absolutely a big part of this. Like Nick if Mannion stinks, like Nick has to answer for that.
Well, let me just play devil's advocate, and I'm not even saying I believe this, but I just would throw it out there. How much harder is it on the offensive coaches in Philadelphia to have answers, as you allude to, BLJ, when, as it's been reported, they don't use the middle of the field. The quarterback doesn't like to be under center. The quarterback doesn't like play. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, are they more limited as coaches? Because someone said to me, well, Kyle Shanahan would have had answers. And I said, well, Kyle Shanahan wouldn't have accepted the premise that I won't run play action or I won't use the middle of the field. So I think it's harder for Eagles coaches. Is that a fair pushback? How do you see that?
I mean, that's what the money is for, though. Like, I feel like that's like what a great coach has to be able to do and ultimately figure out. I'll fully acknowledge what you're saying there. Like, I think there are challenges, but like, I don't think that's so uniquely disqualifying that, he's just like has to throw his hands up and be like, well, I can't do anything about this. Like, there has to be something. I think if you're making the case that like, he's doing everything he can to try to squeeze as much juice as he possibly can out of the orange that he has in his hands, and he's getting everything he can out of it, then sure. But I don't think you can make that argument. I think you can make the argument rather that the talent was actually not like maximized. And I think ultimately, again, that is something that falls under him.
Now, I think it's fair to say that. I think it's fair to say the talent wasn't maximized. But I do think it's a little unfair to say that Nick hasn't taken responsibility. I mean, and you could call it lip service, but he constantly says that everything on that field has my name on it. He has, constantly said that the buck stops with him. Now, if you look at the two instances that we know of, where Jalen and AJ kind of went off the reservation, he kind of tried to protect them. So, and by the way, I think he should have said, I think he should explain what happened and said they shouldn't have done that. I think that's the better way to go about it. But I'm just using that as an example. I think he takes responsibility for everything on that field. That I would give him deference to.
Sure.
But sure, he's to blame. He's to blame more than Kevin Patullo. I've said that from day one.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all operating. Kevin Patullo, Kellen Moore, Brian Johnson, every single one of them was operating under the restriction of Nick Sirianni.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the one to blame or give credit to.
Right.
And I think, by the way, at the end of the day, it'll be the same with Sean Mannion. Like the autonomy question, which I think is going to be a big question this season, I don't think it's nearly as much as people think it's going to be. I think Nick is still in charge. And I don't know if that's going to excite people, but I think that's the case. But I do think he's held himself accountable. I will give him that.
I agree with that part. I just think fans haven't, the fan sentiment, I think, or, in pundit sentiment isn't always like lined up with that. It's like, well, Kevin Patullo was the problem. Like, and I don't think there's enough discussion on Nick's role and things like that relative to there was just sheer outrage for Kevin Patullo. But like, by contrast, I think Nick kind of gets a pass and it's like, well, look at his record. Look how great he is. It's like, okay, you can acknowledge that and also say that the offense, there's been offensive issues that are very much his fault too, and probably should get a little bit more of that same fervor that Patullo got or Brian Johnson got. It's not like all just them. It shouldn't be all just heaped upon them like it kind of gets. But I mean, look, I think another interesting, like what you're talking about there, John, I do think it seems to me like we're going to see more of an influence from Mannion as an offensive coordinator, maybe than we've seen some of these other offensive coordinators by like comparison. But ultimately, again, one of the bigger concerns I have about the team this year is the ultimate kind of play style, this extra ultra conservative mindset at times that we see, even if it's just in specific situations like end of half and third and long, so on and so forth. And maybe that's nitpicking, but I don't think it is. I think it's representative of a bigger mindset. And I do wonder how that's going to, mesh with what Mannion wants to do.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. We'll see what happens with it. I happen to think that, and people, Eagle fans get so mad at me for this, but I just think more of it's on the quarterback. Like, and I'm not saying it's all on the quarterback. I'm just saying if there's limitations on the player and what they're willing to do, that is naturally by default going to limit anybody who's calling plays, especially when you have a running quarterback who doesn't want to run as much. Mike Gill brought that up in the last hour. Shane Steichen was great. Well, Jalen ran a lot with Shane Steichen. We haven't seen that. So I think that's got to be baked into it. It's not to say it's all on Jalen, but, one of the things I didn't like last year as well was, Jalen didn't want to run it because they didn't practice it. And it's like, okay, well, that's what they needed to do to win games. Like what they were doing wasn't working. So I had a little bit of a problem with that, but we will see how much BLG, speaking of the quarterback, how much do you think his job is harder this year without AJ Brown? They've had a pedestrian passing offense with AJ Brown. Now they need to have a better one without him.
Yeah, I think it's a lot harder for a guy who relies so much on his top targets, especially like Jalen does. I think a lot more than other quarterbacks do, which isn't necessarily a bad thing when you have really good players to throw to and rely on them. I'm not saying feeding AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert is a bad thing. But then you lose AJ Brown. Seems like a big deal. You have Devontae Smith. Obviously, you feel great about him. I think those ESPN rankings are underrating him. He's not even in the top 16. I mean, come on. I do think the question is, what do you have behind him? And what is the comfort level that Jalen Hurts has throwing to Mekhi Lemon or Dontavian Wicks or Hollywood Brown? I think the Eagles are probably better in terms of like their wide receiver 3 kind of talent than they've been in the past. When you look at, Quez Watkins and Jahan Dotson, but you're worse on your top end when you're losing AJ Brown. Okay, let's say Devontae Smith fills in for AJ Brown. Good, you feel good about that. Okay, now who fills in for Devontae Smith? Like that's the question. And it's possible that Lemon is really good, but he's a rookie. Like that's not really fair to expect him to be, a total stud from the jump. Like even if he's has a good season for rookie standards, that's still not anything approaching what you're getting out of what you've been able to expect from your top 2 receivers for multiple years now. So it's a big leap, to kind of ask him to make. It's almost like a little unfair that they're they basically put him in that spot, unless Dontavian Wicks or someone else really steps up to be that guy instead, and that kind of takes some of the pressure off of him. If you're going to be of the mindset that Goddard could have a really big role, okay, but he struggles to stay healthy, and yeah, so I think it's certainly a big loss. We can't sit here for the past so many years like we did and talk about how great AJ Brown is, and then say it's no big deal when you trade him.
It's amazing how quickly it's become no big deal. And you're right. At Brandon Gouton, make sure you follow BLG on the X platform, bleedinggreennation.com. Make sure you bookmark it, visit there each and every day, especially as we ramp up toward training camp. 2 weeks from today, we should be on the practice field, BLG. So it's getting close. Now, I'm with you 100% on Devontae Smith. In fact, Zander would tell me, how much if you put all 90 guys on the offseason roster, I think Devontae would be top 5 of guys I don't worry about at all. But the quote that Fowler used in AJ's little capsule as number 9, he was number 9 in the top 10. It's from a coordinator. So, and remember it's one person, but this is what he said about AJ. He changes the coverages people play. Everything will be rolled his way, and it will lighten the box for now it's Josh McDaniels to really get the run game going. He gives them run after catch explosion, isolation down the field on 50-50 plays, which we saw time and time again over those 4 years here. What stuck out to me is he changes the coverages people play, which I think is true. Does that continue with Devontae? Like, I know Devontae's going to produce, but are people going to be so worried that they open up things for others with Devontae Smith?
You're saying like he's going to get more attention, and then that could be a detriment, or you're saying that like
I'm saying maybe he doesn't get the attention, or maybe it could work either way. Maybe he does get the same attention, and it becomes more difficult because he doesn't produce quite at the level that AJ does in those types of situations, or vice versa. They say, we don't have to do that. Let's place more emphasis on stopping others.
Yeah, I would, we haven't seen it fully, but I would say in terms of extended sample size, but I just, like you said, I just don't worry about that at all. I mean, you even look at the Bo Wolf has a good stat on this. I think I mentioned it before. The yards per route run without AJ Brown on the field, and it's it's not the biggest sample size, but Devontae Smith is like an elite player in the NFL, like a top 5 kind of player. When you look at that, he's been just absolutely great, and just skill wise. And then you mentioned the word worry there. Like, it's knock on wood, but like no injury history really significant at all either, despite the fact.
Which is amazing. That's what we're all worried about. We saw his legs and we're like, how's this guy going to hold up?
Oh, he's tough. That's a big part of it too. So, and takes care of himself, trains really, that puts a lot of work into his body, I would say.
He's jacked now from
Absolutely.
where he was. Yeah.
So I don't have any questions there. Like, I don't care what defenses are if they're gonna try to key in on him. Like, that doesn't mean anything to me. I think he's so good that it doesn't really matter what you try to do with him. And then, I do think in theory you should see more attention considering AJ isn't here and you're not feeling so much scared about the other players there. I just have no questions about Devontae, like you said.
Good stuff there. BLG, final one from me comes from one of our great listeners. Penn with the super chat says, morning, guys. Your thoughts on running back depth? BLG, what do you think?
I like how in the weeds we are here. I'm serious.
That's July for you, BLG.
But it's great. I mean, I love that. It's one of the things I love about Eagles fans. It's just like, other teams, fan bases maybe focusing on, is our head coach any good? Is our quarterback any good?
Yeah, right.
Is the running back 3 good enough? That's Philadelphia.
I mean, I think it's awesome. Like, Tank Bigsby needs to have a bigger role than he did last year. I don't know exactly how you do that when you have Saquon Barkley ahead of him, but like, you kind of have to do it. because he was so good, and especially by later in the year, I would say. Like, they just kind of weren't using him at times, and that's ridiculous. Like, he's too good for that. You have to figure it out. Like, that's my thing with it. Like, I might not have the exact answer, but that's not my job. Like, they have to figure that out somehow. And then, Will Shipley, I think, is going to be the number 3 guy. I don't think a lot of Eagles fans like to hear that, but I think the coaching staff likes him a lot more than fans do. He's going to be, play on special teams, stuff like that. So, I feel really good about it.
Yeah, I'm running Saquon to the wheels fall off club. That's what I'm doing. Sorry,
Sure.
Tank, you got to wait. It's just, I mean, yeah, I think that's going to be their way to getting back to be a significant contender, is to get first down. Number one, fix first down, get Saquon Barkley going, and I think everything's going to be fine, and you play off that. But I agree with BLG from the standpoint that Tank is really talented. And next week, BLG, we're going to talk about punt returner. I haven't gotten to that. You talk about getting in the weeds. We got to talk about punt returner, because
it's a big question.
Yeah.
What's the answer? No one knows.
Yeah. You know what I would do? And they would never do this. And everybody said, I'd let Cooper do it. I hate this mentality of, oh no, he can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell not? He can do everything. He'd love to do it.
I kind of agree.
And they would have one of the top 5 punt returners in the league, but they're not going to do that. There's no way Vic would lose his mind. They'll probably just keep Britton Covey on the practice squad for the first 3 weeks and then figure it out from there. That would be my guess. Is that your guess?
Yeah, that's my guess. I mean, I think that just makes the most sense. You can try it out, see how it goes, see if Covey can stay healthy. Kind of really struggled with that, especially more recently, even just in this offseason. So you see what that happens there. And then maybe if that doesn't work out, you kind of revert to putting Coop in there, just because you almost like have no other choice at that point. Yeah.
Who was taking him out at offseason? Was it Prochet? Who was?
It was like, it was like
it's a tryout player who didn't even sign.
Exactly. Coop, him, maybe Lemon gets involved there. We didn't get to see a practice where Lemon was practicing, and they did punt returning. Elijah Moore maybe, but like another guy who might not make the team. It's not great. It's not a great list.
All right.
Good stuff, BLG. We appreciate you joining in, man. Make sure you guys follow BLG at Brandon Goutman on X and all social platforms. And make sure you read his work at bleedinggreennation.com. It is one of the very best Eagle websites out there. Good interactive community as well. BLG, thanks for doing it today, my friend. We will catch up with you again next week.
Sounds good, guys.
Thanks, bud. Man.
There's BLG joining us right here on Birds 365. Johnny Mac, great show today as we inch closer here to NFL training camp, Eagles training camp. I think a couple other teams, John, start a week earlier, right? Because of
Seattle's coming in really quick, because they're, I guess, they're like next Friday, I think, or it might be this Friday, but I don't know. I have to double check. Yes, Seahawks rookies report to training camp on Friday. This Friday. There you go.
Wow, this Friday?
Yeah.
Wow, 2 days from now.
Yeah.
Let's go, football is back, baby. These other sports, I'm sorry. I mean, they're not as good as football, dude. They're just not.
Well,
they're just not exciting. They're not as captivating. Even football with as you call it, the product is worse nowadays. It still keeps people fully enthused throughout the year, at least.
Well, I think it's scarcity.
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
You only got 17 games. Nick Sirianni says all the time, we're the only sport that practices more than we play. There's so much when you have time in between things, there's time to build up emotion and anticipation. You don't have that. You could have the worst game, and Phillies fans are like this because they have a football mentality. I always say Philadelphia has football mentality, and the Phillies might get blown out 15-10 5 on it because that happens no matter if you're the best team or the worst team. You play 162, you're going to have some stinkers thrown in there. And for 24 hours they lose their minds, but they're on the field the next day. So you forget about it really, really quickly. Whereas if you put a stinker up in the NFL, you got to wait 7 days usually before you get back on the field, and everybody's talking about it. And then if you end the season poorly like the Eagles did, well, there you go. You're firing people, you're hiring people, and you add on top of that the passionate fan base that is Philadelphia. I mean, doesn't matter what the Phillies do. It doesn't matter what the Sixers do. They could be number one for a short time if the Phillies are in the World Series or the Sixers acquire Jalen Brown. But the Eagles are king of the road in this town.
Yep, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. And they're almost back up and running here this year, Johnny Mac. So it's going to be an exciting year. It's going to be an interesting year for sure. I think this will be the year that Eagle fans will either continue or have the chance to continue in this run, or they will have to face the reality of the problems with this football team. I don't think they can escape it anymore, John. I think it's a quarterback, and everybody gets mad at me for that. But I think the quarterback's got to play better. It is what it is. I mean, he's got it.
Like I always said, poor Joe Shane. If Howie was dumb enough to let his private conversations leak, woo, people would lose their minds.
Man, I wish Howie's not that dumb though. He's just not. No. He's a smart guy. So that won't happen. No. But yeah, I'd love to hear that. What would you speculate? It's just a speculation. What do you speculate people would hear?
My biggest compliment I can give Howie is he's got a contingency for everything. He has all these conversations. What if it goes wrong? He doesn't sit there like the baby ear people and say everything's going to be fine. He's the exact opposite. He's got to prepare for the rainy day, and he is better prepared for the rainy day than anybody else in the industry. So the Eagles fans should be happy about that. But you don't get prepared for that rainy day by ignoring potential problems. Not how it works.
And it's not like these problems would be new problems. There's like a crack in the pipe, and Eagle fans think Flex Seal is gonna hold up, through the inspection of the house.
Flex Seal's a pretty good product.
Yeah, I don't know if you're selling your house.
No, you're not. I'm not fixing my boat with it, but it'll work for a day. It'll get you back to shore.
There you go. There you go. I might need to get a Flex Seal spot.
Flex Seal love. You got to get some Flex Seal now that you're a homeowner or a home
renter. I'm not a homeowner. I'm a home renter.
Still, you're going to have to fix some shit.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Get some Flex Seal next time you're at Home Depot. There, we got two spots.
I got my Blackstone set up yesterday, J-Mac.
Did you?
So,
nice.
Yeah, I got I'm so used to, I've always traded in a propane tank when you're getting one, so it's like $24.99. Well, I went and met my new house. I don't have a propane tank here. It was like $75 yesterday.
The first one. Yeah, you got it.
They're like, you don't have a trade in. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man. So that was a dagger yesterday.
Yeah, you got to pay. You got to pay 75, and then it's 24. Yeah.
And then it's 24.
I got a good propane, but it's like a Gardner. It's not. If you go to like a Wawa or just do those things, you're getting ding. If you find one of these shops that do propane, you'll get it for like $17-$18.
Yeah, I saw one actually near me. It's funny you said that. That does, like, it says there's a little sign out front. We do propane refills, and it was like $20.99. So pretty good, better.
Yeah. If you look around, you can find a spot. It's not worth it if it's far away, but I got a spot that's less than a mile away from my house. So.
Ooh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Blackstones, they drink propane too. That's the problem with them. My uncle actually did he made like a spigot off his home. So it's like not a spigot, but a gas line off his home
Yeah.
that goes right into the Blackstone, so he doesn't have to buy propane. It just comes off his gas, which is pretty nice as well. So pretty good stuff. All right, Johnny Mac, your final thoughts on a Wednesday edition of Birds 365.
2 weeks away. I'm starting to get that nervous anticipation. More about leaving Tank than anything else. Not Tank Bigsby, my Tank.
How is Tank? How's Tank been? Good.
Oh, he's good. He's settling in, but
Acclimated to the new home, to his new environment.
yeah, but I've been around a lot, and then when you're not around a lot, that's what
Right.
I'm worried about.
Yeah, right. Is he going to get a little bit of angst?
Yeah.
When J-Mac leaves the home. Is he trained? Like, did you have to train him, or did he come to you mostly trained? How did that?
Mostly. He had a couple accidents. Yeah, I don't even know if it's accident. They like to mark their territory, but he's pretty much stopped that. Although he hates the fucking rain, so that's anytime it rains, it's not a good day for me.
Yeah, that's tough, man. My old dog was like that too. I don't know what it is. It's almost like it's something that's bigger than they can understand, so it spooks the crap out of them. That's like thunder, you know what I mean? They hear it, and it's like this big. I don't know. All right, John, good show, man. I'll talk to you tomorrow morning. Tell Tank we said hello here in Birds 365.
Will do. Thanks all.
All right, thank you, J-Mac. There's Johnny Mac, John McMullen joining us right here on Birds 365. A good show today. Two great guests, Mike Gill, Brandon Lee Gowan, some good conversations all throughout. All right, some good conversations all throughout the show here on Birds 365. I want to thank and welcome everybody for being here. All right, I'm going to kill that background. That background bothers me. But appreciate all you guys. And, a lot of good things happening and excited for this Eagles season to come. I will say, if you can't handle conversations about every player on this football team and every part of this football team and every coach on this football team, I'm just telling you now, maybe go ahead to another place, because we're not going to sit here and leave stones unturned on JAKIB Sports. We're not going to not hold players and people accountable for what they are supposed to do for this football team. All right? No more baby ears. No more delusion land. No more acting like somebody has zero part of the problem or part of the blame. That goes for me too. I will take all of you guys telling me where I'm delusional. All right? But we're not going to sit here and act like the quarterback of the football team has nothing to do with the offensive output. Please. Okay? Well, I don't cover the Bills and the Bengals, M. Reyes. How's that? Caden, if Hurts is able to do that, I will give him his credit. All right? I will certainly give him his credit. I mean, it's unbelievable out here. I've never seen it. I've never seen anything like it. By the way, I told you yesterday was, remember I told you guys yesterday on Zander time, the wife came home from Target. She said, I got a big spending. That was the start of a long day. That was the start of a long day. That might have been our cheapest run of the day. All right. That might have been our cheapest run of the day. It was one of those Target runs where it was like $500 and you don't even know what you got. It was like trash cans and pillows for the couch and organizers for the cupboards. And it's like nothing great, nothing big. And then I guess my sister-in-law, my brother's wife came to town, and because she was seeing her place that they're not moved in yet, but they're moving in a couple weeks. So she came to town, and my wife and her went out together. And I guess they discovered this place called Home Sense, which is like in the Home Goods family. They got couches, they got chairs, they got bedside tables, they got outdoor furniture. So in came the text. Zander, I love this outdoor furniture set. All right, honey. We do need some outdoor furniture. Go ahead and get it. And then came the text, Zan, we can't just have a couch. We need this beautiful chair in our living room. All right, honey, go ahead and get the chair. All right. And $2,000 later, here we are. A good morning to you all. But no, it was some good stuff. I will agree to that. All right. So the outdoor furniture is in. The beautiful green chair next to the couch is in. The Target run is in. All right. So that's kind of how yesterday went. Target was the least of our worries yesterday, but it was pretty good. Oh, the other thing I got for any of my fellow Catholics listening, I did find at the store when I went back to pick up the outside furniture, I did find a beautiful statue of the Virgin Mary for outside the home. So we have these I don't want to call it a garden. It's like you put in like gravel type of thing. So I've carved out a little place. We're going to put flowers, and we have a beautiful statue now of the Virgin Mother, which is a beautiful thing. I always love that. I always love that in the home. All right. So we did get that. I was excited. That was the best money that we spent yesterday, in my opinion. All right. Caleb, what's up, Caleb? He says this. Although Jalen has been to 2 Super Bowls and is an All-Pro, been to 2 Super Bowls and a Super Bowl MVP, it's something about Tanner McKee. This is for the Tanner guys last season. # never forget. Well, Caleb, Jalen has accomplished a lot. There's no denying that. Jalen Hurts has to play better, Caleb. He's got to play better. It's time for him to take over this football team. Okay? That's my opinion. Tanner, I don't know what will happen. But, it is what it is. Did you get hold? Yeah, Reyes. I did at the Vatican when I was in Rome. So we got that for sure. The vet got transferred to Sioka. I had to sign the authorization on Monday for them to, go into the car. So the preliminary estimates just from the outside that I got from CarStar was like $25,000, and that's before they didn't go into the car at all. So now Sioka's going into the car. So I'm hoping that bill goes way up and the thing gets totaled out, Gary. But I don't know for sure. Otherwise, I'm going to be dealing with diminished value claims, and anybody who's in the Corvette world, Tony, you know this. I mean, and maybe you don't because you've never had to get your Corvette fixed, but the parts take forever. The work takes forever. I mean, if they really tell me that they're fixing the car, it'll be minimum 6 months. Minimum, I think minimum 6 months. So we'll see, dude. It's not sorted out yet, and it might be a while until it's sorted out, unless they total it out, which would be ideal. Caleb says, I agree, and I think he will play better. Congrats on the win. Caleb, thank you, brother. And I think that's fair. All right? You can agree he needs to play better, and it's also fair for you to think he will play better. All right? Caleb, good stuff, brother. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. All right? Gary, I got nothing. I don't have a truck. I got my wife's Acura RDX with 90K on the clock. What do you think? What do you think, Gary? Can we get some content with that? I don't think so, dude. All right. So yeah, I'm struggling, but I am shopping right now for a truck. So we'll see. I'm hoping the vet gets totaled out, then I can get the truck and I'll figure out what to do. Next. So I'll keep you posted. I'll tell you what, any more trips to the home goods stores, I might be selling it all, folks. Steve, what's up, Steve? Steve, I see your profile picture. I saw your post up on Instagram. Nice stuff, dude. You were down there for Philly for the All-Star game. That's pretty cool. Zay, they need Hurts to step up and evolve and use his legs more. He's nowhere near 65 mil without his running. I agree, brother. I agree. Congrats on the wedding, Z. Love you. Steve, love you too, brother. Thank you, man, for being here. One of our best here on JAKIB Sports. So. But all right, guys, I got to run. You boys got to take a leak, and I actually have to go and pick some of the furniture up still because I don't have a truck right now. So I had to, speaking of the RDX, I had to load part of the outdoor furniture into the back of the RDX. It didn't all fit. I put in the hold order, and now I got to go and get it. I get the rest of it. I got to get the chairs and the tables. So I got to go and get that. But so let me run and let me get all that done. I want to thank and welcome all you guys. Tanner, thanks for re-upping on your membership, brother. Appreciate you doing that. Appreciate you supporting the channel. and appreciate all of you guys for doing it. All right, so hit that like button. Appreciate all you guys. See you next time, everybody.